Hello, and welcome to a special discussion on diversity in cinema and the arts and engineering. I'm Sharon Watson, I'm the Chief Exec and the Principal of the Northern School of Contemporary Dance, and I'm delighted to chair this panel today. We're here to talk about cultural impact of the Black Panther, a groundbreaking Marvel film with an almost entirely Black cast that broke the mold of Hollywood blockbusters. It's been described in the Times as a movie about what it means to be Black in both America and Africa, and more broadly in the world. It's an entertaining film, it's funny, it's sharp, it's choreographed, and it's beautiful. It's the kind of film that actually just takes me to another place, another dimension. And it stars the late Chadwick Boseman, who brought the incredible grace and complexity to his portrayal of King T'Challa, aka Black Panther. And it features some incredible engineering, from flying taxis to self-closing shoes, masterminded by Suri, Princess of Wakanda, played by Letitia Wright. Now, in this room today, we have three wonderful, inspiring life engineers, and to discuss the film with us and what they do in their careers as engineers. And this is all happening ahead of This is Engineering Day, which happens on Wednesday, the 4th of November. What an absolute pleasure to be in the room with you, ladies. I think I'm pretty starstruck, just thinking about what engineering entails and the journeys that you've all taken. And I'm just going to ask a few questions, which I think would help us understand, and we're challenged by the perceptions of what engineering does, in particular, the lack of women within engineering, and even more so, the lack of Black and Asian women or ethnic minorities within the field. So it's, Felicia, would you mind just taking us away and just telling us a little bit about how you got into engineering, but also the fact that actually we've had this amazing film, we have it, and it has an impact across so many generations and situations. And would you just mind giving us a response to the film in terms of the computer games maybe that you've engaged with on social media? Just a little insight about who you are.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sharon, for that lovely introduction. Yes, I'm very excited to be part of this panel as well. Hello, everyone out there. I am Felicia Williams. I am a director of design at Twitter, and I am an engineer, which is awesome. It's great. Love engineering. Just in reaction to the film Black Panther. So I'm an American. And I could tell you, Marvel in general, they describe actually this era, of movies, right? The superhero era of movies that have come up with Marvel and the multiple phases that they've gone through, in terms of technology and the way that filming has evolved. It's been really incredible watching all of these stories that were, previously just pen to paper come to life on the big screen. And I think one of the most incredible things that the Black Panther movie has done is not just only brought to life an incredible a character like T'Challa, especially, given that Black Panther is also named after a civil rights movement, a group that operated in the United States as a part of the civil rights movement and was a critical piece of the civil rights movement. And we are now going through a second civil rights movement. I think us Black Americans and people of color in the United States. There's such an incredible connection there, and to see the evolution of technology. I am a future technologist. I've worked in VR and mixed reality and augmented reality almost my entire life, leading teams in that space. And I can tell you, I love this film. It's such an incredible film. I mean, who doesn't know, like, Wakanda forever? Like, who doesn't do that? I mean, unless they've lived under a rock, really, who doesn't, right? Even the meanest spirited person, you do this to them and they're like, Wakanda forever.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. It's an amazing film. And I think, there's a lot of really smart choices that was made both by the director, by Chadwick Boseman himself, even down to the accents that they decided to use. They wanted it to be very authentically African accents. I think there was a lot that was writing in this and the colorfulness of that movie. So I love it. I love it so much. But I'm happy to talk a little bit more about some of the technology stuff, but I don't want to take up too much.
We can come back to that. That's
I
amazing.
could
Thank
talk about
you.
it forever.
Wakanda forever. Tita, it's important that we have role models, and it's there's what 12% of professional engineers are female, and 9% are from a Black and ethnic minority. What is it that inspired you as one of those small numbers that have gone into engineering? Tell us a little bit about you and actually what the inspiration was.
Okay, so for me, so I'm a safety engineer and I've worked across a number of industries. But how I got into it, I studied chemical engineering in university, and basically what inspired me was just the fact that I was quite curious about how things go from from one form to another, basically and I mean it's a really funny story, but really it was about just understanding. It started from understanding how like my mom would put like different ingredients into a pot and come up like with this really nice pot of soup. So I'm Nigerian and I absolutely love Nigerian cuisine as well. So we have like this different ranges of flavors and different ingredients that we use as well, that come together to make stuff. And even when you talk things like baking as well, so it's not just cooking but just like baking. So I was always quite interested in seeing you put flour and sugar together and then it becomes like this amazing cake, or things like that. So and then I found out that I kind of enjoyed physics and chemistry and mathematics especially. And going back to like role models, I had quite a few people. I had few people that were engineers around me. So my uncle was an engineer, and even when I then spoke about when I spoke about going into the career in engineering, I don't have any engineers in my nuclear family, but my nuclear family were quite supportive in terms of telling me, okay, this is who you can speak to. And in particular, I spoke to a friend of my sister's who then gave me a lowdown on the different types of engineering as well. So I would say like inspiration is all around. I would even say as well for my parents as well, because they actually they encouraged me to be curious. They always encouraged me to do things, and I get that maybe that's not quite common, but as well that's one of the things that I'm always passionate about, is getting people that are not necessarily engineers to just understand what engineers do as well. So it's quite important, particularly with parents. You don't have to be an engineer. My parents are in financial services, so they have no clue what engineering is about as such. So yes, I think that's what inspired me. And yeah, of course, then talking about the film, like seeing things about just seeing like you said, an almost black cast, it was quite inspirational, just to the fun to see the fun side of engineering as well. Yeah.
That's amazing. I think it's so important to have that the additional support that's around you in whatever shape or form it comes in. I'm from a dance background, and within my industry, what's interesting is we start out with the entry level where it's majority female, and by the time you get to the top, you're dealing with majority men, and it's CEOs, chief execs. You're not finding women in particular, Black or Asian women in those positions. And Tara, I think it's interesting that moving up the ladder in terms of the work you do, there must have been some interesting challenges along the way. Have you anything to share with us on that? And I'd love to know a little more about your position and what it is that you do within engineering as well.
Okay, so I think I'm in IT, so it's technology. And when you say, it's interesting you say the word engineering, that I didn't start off in engineering. I started off in finance, so I was an accountant, and I basically had the opportunity. It was an opportunity to move into IT because it interested me a lot more than month ends. I was, at one point, the only female from a background of color. So my father's Jamaican, my mother's English. I was a single mother. I traveled a lot for my job, so there was a lot of should I say challenges along the way, but I'd say more so I'd say from the male female stance than the color, which what I thought. But I think just because I don't look necessarily a woman of color, people are not sure where I come from. I don't necessarily look like my dad's from Jamaica. So I think that also you could see that, you know, that difference again, how people perceive you because of the way that you look, you know, without knowing your background as well, which I think is an interesting, you know, part of the whole Black Lives Matter, that, you know, it's not only that, you know, because you look black that you have prejudice against you, because, you know, people of mixed heritage as well, I think fall into the whole conversation of, you know, around Black Lives Matter. So, you know, I think it's also important that we have role models, you know, that we can relate to, that we have a connection to, that either that person looks like you or the person is doing something that you'd like to do, that gives you the inspiration that, you know, hey, you know, I can do that. Wow. You know, the amount of young women that now I hope are going into, you know, technology and engineering and so forth because of the Black Panther.
Felicia, I mean, I guess it'd be interesting just to elaborate about, you know, the influence of young people in their career choices. Could you just elaborate a little bit on that? Was that something that kind of enabled you to take on that that journey?
So my own career path was very different, actually. I grew up playing video games. I love video games. I loved drawing. I loved writing stories. I could tell you, you know, if I could get into a time machine and go back, and I talked to my young self and I told her that I wasn't either making comic books, I hadn't written a best-selling children's novel, and nor was I making video games, I think she would look at me and look at me as a failure. Because she was really into those things. She really loved those things. But actually, what was great was that along the way, I realized I started learning that there's a lot of different ways that one could tell stories. And engineering is one of those ways, right? Being able to create program software experiences, designed experiences is a form of storytelling. And in fact, it's the form of storytelling that is collaborative, because in essence, you are creating a framework upon which other people are coming into experience this thing that you've built, this story that you're trying to tell, this software this product that you've built, the software that you've built, and then you're essentially creating an experience together, which I think is actually a hallmark of some of the greatest software engineering out there, is when it really feels collaborative between both the product and the user. In terms of just seeing representation in general, as you get older, I think you realize the impact that lack of representation has on you, right? The inability to be able to see those who reflect who you are in positions of success and power. And what you are doing is that you're attaching that to others, right? You know, I think, you know, if you'd asked me 10 years ago, the people that I admired, they would probably all be white men, because they had achieved things that I really wanted to achieve, right? And so I think it's such a great, I think it's an important conversation to be having about this type of media, the impact of this type of media, this type of movie, these types of roles that they have on the younger generations, because it's not to say that you can't be it if you don't see it, but man, it definitely gives you a lot more fire. It gives you a lot more inspiration when you do, right?
And there's an amazing shortcut by being able to see it. There is an amazing shortcut, just actually knowing that it's a tangible reality.
100%.
Yeah, and you know, Suri leads the Wakanda research program, you know, flying cars, all of the kind of the monorails, advanced materials. It all seems like a make-believe world, but actually there's a reality. I mean, you change lives. And it's really one of the things that's quite interesting. TT, maybe you can elaborate on that, the reality of what you do in today's world, how you impact, and actually that real word that we can sometimes take for granted, you change people's lives.
Yes, indeed. And I mean, just like, I think going back to something that Felicia said as well, it's true that it's not that you can't succeed, you know, when you sort of don't see a role model, but when you do see that role model, it's quite. And for me, just like looking at Shuri, it's funny enough, it's not the fact that she does these amazing things, because yeah, of course, it's not just the fact that she does these amazing things, because of course she does it. She's like, yeah, I did that, yeah, I did that. But for me, it's more about her sort of her aura, the fact that she still like knows things. She knows like what Coachella is, she knows like what Disneyland is, because a lot of times when people see you as an engineer, they think, oh, you're an engineer and that's so amazing, but that means you probably don't have like a social life, or you don't know anything else, or you're not with current affairs, or you don't know how to joke. I mean, she was forever throwing her brother throwing jabs at her brother, right? So I mean, that's so important. And I mean, going back to what I do as a safety engineer, I think it's really, really important. Safety is important in like so many industries, and I mean in everything that we use. So whether it's like, you know, yes, you're producing oil and gas from a particular place, but you don't want to like pillage the place just because you're doing that, or you know, you're designing a new train line or something like that, and you want to make sure that, you know, there's a good user experience, and part of the good user experience is making sure that, you know, people get home safely.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. I think the nuances of what you do with such specificity is unbelievable. It really is. The smaller, you know, sometimes we can take it for granted. So, you know, I work in dance, as I've said, and very often it's never perfection. We never get to the end of the thing that we want to make, because we always want the next best thing, or we want the next opportunity to give us those opportunities to really refine. And, you know, there's organizations, I think it's just one of those things that happens within the industry. And Tara, how do you feel that, you know, we've got the global world in this room right now, but in the UK we've got some challenges, and we've got challenges within STEAM, we've got challenges within STEM. How do you feel that the UK organizations are addressing diversity and inclusion, in particular when it comes to engineering?
I can, you know, I'm a member of the Women's Leadership Network. For example, we had this aspiration to increase the number of women in technology by 35% by 2020. And I think we're only at 28%. Also, you know, the number and at leadership level. So, you know, they're coming in at the lower bands, but at the leadership level where you need more women and, you know, diversity at the leadership level to make a change, to make an impact, it's got to come top down, you know, and lead by example.
So what advice would you give to a young person that literally is sitting in their room thinking, I want to do this, but actually look at what I've got given, look at what I've been landed with. How do I step out of this space in order to achieve?
I think that's a great question. Actually, I'd love to take a run at that and link it back actually to the movie. So one of the things that I love doing with my teams, I typically, as a design leader, I will sometimes run brainstorms and things like that, brainstorming sessions. And one of my favorite activities, we don't do it all the time, but one of my favorite activities is actually to take a look at a movie with some future tech. Some piece of tech that does not exist. Usually, you know, you want it to be like way, way far out kind of tech. And of course, Wakanda has a lot of that, right? And it's to try to backwards engineer it. So you look at it and you say, okay, it works exactly as prescribed on screen. Okay, how does it work? How do you break it down? How do those particles that reformulate into various vehicles in the movie, when Martin Freeman's in you know, when he's helping to defend places, or when Shuri's in the vehicle trying to remote control the vehicle, you know, while our heroes are off in Korea, you know, how does that work? How does that ferrofluid stuff work? And it's a really great exercise, because it actually doesn't take a piece of technology. Actually, the piece of technology that it takes is just your brain. And so what you're doing is you're using your imagination. You're also using your understanding of current technology. You're using speculating about, you know, where technology could go and how it could transform and what the user experience might be. And then also you're thinking about accessibility and usability, like Titi said. You know, you're thinking about all of those things, and because it's future technology, and there are no wrong answers, you're essentially creating a system. I want to encourage actually young people out there to do this kind of exercise, because it doesn't require the latest hardware. It doesn't require the fastest broadband connection. All it requires is just some curiosity, and then have these conversations. Get online, have these conversations with folks, and believe me, by the time you are ready to enter into the workforce, or you're starting to think about university, or maybe you're already at university and you started to talk to recruiters and things like that, talking about some of these things, these experiments that you've had, whether you write them down on paper, maybe you make a little video, maybe you actually you download Unity and you actually make some interactive experiences as well. Whatever your format is for wanting to express your imagination, as an engineer, all it is just like getting started. It doesn't matter, right? It's all about just getting started. Having that content is just going to be really great for you, just great thought fodder. So that would be my recommendation to folks. I love it. I love these experiments. They're so much fun. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely agree.
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say I absolutely agree. If you think about it, Newton was just sat under the tree, and then something. I don't know if that story is true, but anyway, it's all in the everyday and in the ordinary, and like you mentioned, start with what you have. If we even go back to the the movie as well, what they had in abundance was vibranium, and basically it was it was so interesting to see how they can use it, like for their transportation, for their defense, for everything, for medical engineering as well. So it's just really, like you mentioned, just start with what you have, and just be in the ordinary as well. You don't need to sit down and be like, I'm gonna get like an invention today. It can literally come to you as you're walking, or as you're Archimedes was in the bath as well. So really just in your everyday thingy activities, just go on with it, basically. Yeah.
So I was just going to say it's quite interesting, because I think those starting places are so fresh, innocent, and inspiring, just to be able to allow the brain to dream, and to kind of really dissect what's possible. But at the other end of it, there's got to be some kind of support that helps for these opportunities to become realities. And we have people in positions of power that perhaps are not seeing it in the way that you've just described. And how would each of you kind of have that dialogue with those that are in positions of power? Because the statistics are not looking great. We're not seeing the numbers increase enough to say that it's kind of the change is happening, but you potentially have a place at the table. So what kind of conversations do you think you'd be able to influence and to make change? And if you have experienced that, would you share that with us?
I just wanted to say that I think that schools, I think the government and the schooling has a big part to play, because especially with young people, because they go there every day, and what they are exposed to also challenges them in so many different ways. And you can go to I think going back to the basics, and just children being children, because if I look at what my daughter, she's 9, and so much is related to technology. Whereas I'm like, what happened to going and building something from and she does that as well, just an empty box and does something. But then again, 9-year-olds, they know more about technology than I do. And but also I think the schools, because even I said to my daughter, what are you doing about Black History Month this month? Oh, we had an assembly. And I then thought to myself, actually, I should have gone to the school head and said, before we came to Black History Month, what is on the curriculum? What are you doing for Black History Month? How are our children learning? And being accessible to certain information? Because and I think this, personally, we as parents, or as just adults, have a responsibility in whichever way we can to, you know, go to organizations, be it a school, be it our organization that we work for, and ask them to sponsor, you know, or you know, to do something towards that. I think, you know, that's how I personally see it. That's two areas that's something I, as a human being, can do something that could make a small difference.
Nice.
To add on to that, I think, you know, to your question about what can corporations do, I think one of the things that there's a duality here that I think corporations sometimes struggle with. One is the speed with which they feel that they can actually bring in hires, right? And then, of course, those corporations who do, or those companies who do have the desire to diversify, the inherent culture that may stand in their way, right? Whether they're aware of it or not. One of the things that I had the great privilege about a year ago or so to do a TEDx talk, and I talked very much about the importance of diversity and making diversity inclusion and bringing different groups together, not just because it's great in terms of making sure that, you know, you have a representative workforce, but actually it statistically is proven that it does result in better products, and better products also means better for your bottom line. And so, you know, if you're a fiscally motivated person, that should also get people excited as well. But, you know, you can say that to a person, but then the realities of actually having to go through, check your bias, and actually hire in somebody who will challenge you and do all the things that are beneficial to making that product better, which includes challenging you know, the status quo, is a very tall order. I think for a lot of folks, right? I think people, they're used to seeing other as sidekick, and, you know, again, using a little bit of parlance from the movie here, I think, you know, one of the reasons why it took so long for Marvel, and I won't just say Marvel, but, you know, I think for many for the film industry to be able to create movies around Black heroes, because remember, they've been making movies about Black folks for a very long time, but oftentimes those stories are told from slave and their path to freedom, right? I think, you know, I am absolutely paraphrasing here. I could be absolutely wrong. Somebody could, you know, check me on in the comments. But, you know, I you know, in terms of Oscar-winning movies with Black casts, 12 Years a Slave, you know, multiple movies about the stories of Black folks who through a slavery journey. Right. You don't see a lot that is just about, you know, Black excellence. Right. And that's what Black Panther is. It is Black excellence, full stop, no excuses. And so being able to create a culture in your company where you are embracing that diversity, not as the thing that you need to tick off because now a lot of attention is being paid to it, is it takes work. It takes hard work. Actually, the team that I am on at Twitter is one of the most diverse teams, management and leadership teams I have ever been a part of. We are a diversity magnet. It is incredible to be working there. But it is an intentional effort. It is not an accident. And I think, you know, it's important, I think, for those people who are in positions of power to realize it's going to be uncomfortable to make these changes if they are, you know, I think they know that intellectually, but but once you're, you know, once you're actually in it and you're like, I'm a little uncomfortable, you know, I'm gonna, you know, maybe I'm gonna push this off a little bit, you know, it's
side ducking
yeah. It's like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. But I mean, I think everyone is well-intentioned, but I think it's not enough to be well-intentioned. You got to follow through.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
The systems that we have in place are created to perpetuate and continue to deliver what we already have. So it's quite hard to really to break those systems. And I guess in a way,
other as sidekick, not as hero.
Yeah.
Yep.
And actually, it's one of those things that we can continue talking about how we're going to change the world through science, through movement, through change, through engineering, through all of these things which are really important to us. But I think in terms of just a little bit of our own luxury, and of course, having watched the amazing film, which you just have to keep watching over and over again to see the amazing greatness that happens within Black Panther. It is quite phenomenal. I just want to ask each of you a question with regards to the film, and what technology shown in the film would you most like to own or invent in real life?
So yeah, for me, basically, I'll go for the where she did like a spinal and like the spinal medical engineering thing, because yeah, I mean, I hate pain. I hate seeing people in pain. So if I had that, I will literally just do it for myself, do it for all the like people around me, and yeah, because it's really amazing to be able to just have that quick quick what's it called like quick response to sorry quick recovery basically. And yeah, that's for me, that's so important. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, just the sass as well with which she did it, like when he woke up, she was now like, oh yeah, you're done, yeah, everything's all right with you. And yeah, so yeah, definitely I want to do that with that pizzazz as well.
So I would say shrink into T'Challa's suit to fit into his necklace. So yeah, so you can imagine that you just need everything you need. You're traveling, you just put it in the necklace, and then you go all around the world, and it all pops out as you want it. Or even, I mean, that's quite a I don't know what's the word. A lot of us women put a lot of things in our bags, so it would reduce that. But also, yeah, I mean, even from a medical perspective, and also from being able to say, yeah, we need all this to get to this side of the world, to be able to feed that side of the world. We just stick it in here, and we fly off on one of those wonderful cars that just fly and get to wherever in the world. And you know what, I won't live to see that, I'm sure, but I think it will happen.
Amazing. Well, maybe the young people that you've inspired from listening to this will be the ones that will make that happen. Felicia, what about you? Yeah. What about you, Felicia?
I feel like I'm going to say kind of a lame one. My first instinct is the shape-shifting metal. The Star Trekkie in me actually thinks that the force field barrier is like the most promising technology. Able to construct a completely clear force field that actually in any shape or form, I think would be an absolute technology. And I think that would be fantastic. I think that would be really fantastic to have that. I think a lot about that on, I don't know if anybody here watches Star Trek Discovery, fantastic Black female lead. And in the second episode of the first season, they show off some new thoughts about how force fields work. And I was like, I mean, of all the technology in Star Trek, I was like, ooh, that is nice. That is nice. I like how that works. But I'm sorry. One thing I do want to say, because I actually don't want to be burned down on the internet for this. I want to say that 12 Years a Slave is a fantastic movie.
And
12 Years a Slave, it's a fantastic movie. Those actors and actresses.
Christian, you need to edit. That's not going in.
Okay.
The color purple is fantastic. All of those movies are fantastic. I just wanted to emphasize the fact that Hollywood can do more for just straight Black heroism, Black excellence.
So Black Panther 2, I think he's planned for 2021, is it? Or 2022? Oh yeah, it's going to be sugar sweet, but bittersweet. Yeah.
Maybe Shuri will be the heroine. Who knows? That'd be very
Well, that's, I mean, I think it's amazing that we have, we have Black excellence that isn't taken from a position of slavery, that is taken, that we can absolutely celebrate our greatness in many, many forms, of which you have all demonstrated this evening, which is amazing. And it's just wonderful to hear your voices in a way that actually, I hope, continues to inspire. I'm sure it has already done so. And that the work that you continue to do will also continue to impact in reality, because life goes on, and to see you as successful in what you do and so passionate about what you do, it's been an absolute pleasure to have this conversation, this discussion with you this afternoon. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your insight and inspiration, and I wish you all the best in the next steps, because we're looking out for the next car that's going to take us to the other side of the world in less than 30 seconds. So I just want to say a massive thank you for your contribution to today's discussion. How inspiring and absolutely amazing. And I want to extend a thanks to the host, Bradford Science Festival and the National Museum of Science and Media and the Royal Academy of Engineering. And to all of you that have been watching this amazing conversation, I hope you take away some inspiration and share as much as possible, because life is changing and the representation needs to change, our opportunities can change, and we can do that all by actually taking the opportunity to share and to have a look at the world through different lenses. Thank you all.